Hey everyone, this is part 2 of this series. I'm doing 1, 2, and 3. The first one was day 1 to 6 months. This one is 6 months to 18 months. And everything I'm talking about in this video, there are no set guarantees here. These are just things I've seen working with thousands of people between the webinars and one-to-one coaching and everyone that we interact with on social media. We have a pretty good eye because we work with so many people in so many different countries with so many different cultures on what to really expect when someone is putting the work in. Remember, that is the basis of this. Putting the work in. You're never going to get absolute certainty if you're putting the work in, but I do think it is important to say that, because it doesn't matter if you're 2 years in, if you're not putting any work in whatsoever, this video won't apply to you. So before I go any further, please subscribe, hit that like button down below. Let me know what you think about this. If you want to reach out for one-to-one coaching, for webinar services, please reach out to phil@ocdrecovery.com. Again, that is phil@ocdrecovery.com. He will update you on packages, how they come with webinars, how to get access to the WhatsApp groups, etc., etc. So hopefully by 6 months from your first call or putting the work in seriously, you've read all the books on the reading list, every single one. A lot of the books aren't even long books. I mean, take away the appendix of Albert Ellis's first book, Stubbornly Refused. It's 195 pages, 200 pages. I think Man's Search for Meaning is 180. Paul David's is like 180. The Myth of Self-Esteem is the most difficult read, next to Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. If you get the Greco-Roman version, Thou Thy, it's supposed to be a difficult read. We understand that. The more you tell us the read is difficult over and over and over again, you're instilling low frustration tolerance. So hopefully you've read all the books on the reading list at least once. You more than likely will have to go back and read all the books again at some point in your time. I've read most of the books 2 to 4 times, depending on the book. I've read chapter 4 in The Myth of Self-Esteem probably 5 or 6 times. Sometimes it was compulsively, sometimes it wasn't. I took the risk. You are going to have to take the risk that you are going to do some compulsions, because everyone does do that. That is very important to cover. And you've done all the exercises from the first book on paper. The first book is always on my desk. It's right there because I use examples in my emails when I'm breaking things down for people. The next thing is your structure in your life looks a lot different. So if you're not working, you're back at work part-time or full-time. If you've been avoiding relationships, maybe you're seeing someone or seeing multiple people. There's no right or wrong here, whether you want to be monogamous, maybe you want to be polyamorous. I don't care about any of that. I mean going out and socializing, etc. You're better with some of your habits, such as spending habits. Some of your hygiene habits are much, much better. You'd be surprised on how much progress you can make once you get to that 6-month period of doing things the right way. Now, what I like to call the meat and potatoes is kind of 6 months to 18 months, maybe a little earlier, a little longer for certain people, but we're going to use that time frame of that year. So 6 months to 18 months. So 0.5 years into a year and a half in. And in that time period, a lot of people don't see nearly as much progress physically, physical symptoms, as they did in the beginning of their journey, and that's to be expected. So take me for an example. Once I started to get underneath my sensory motor-based fears, remember the goal isn't to make your sensations go away, it's to become comfortable with those sensations. I would say that they lingered. My saliva, my swallowing, aspects of my blinking, hyper-awareness of my thumbs, morphed around a lot, hyper-awareness of my belt line, different panicking, anxiety, rigid beliefs I held, those would wax and wane for up to a year and a half to even 2 years. So past this video's time frame, getting more comfortable. I never look at anything as the severity, because that's not something actually in my control. What is in my control? Am I acting through a compulsion, avoidance behavior? Am I venting? Am I doing the exercises on paper? Am I building my life structure? There's a lot of people out there, understandably so, on social media who are talking about being recovered, but then they're making posts from the room all day, not working, complaining about society. These people are not recovered whatsoever. So it's difficult. We have a very good sense when we open our minds the people that we want to look up to. When I came into OCD recovery, I was looking at Jade, I was looking at Paul Little, I was looking at Rob. Moment was in here a little bit before me, maybe by about 5 or 6 months. And I was very rigid. We were making a joke the other day, and that's going to go into one of my other points about 6 to 18 months. I mean, we were talking about arranged marriages, and I held very rigid beliefs about that, you know, because I grew up in a very privileged area. I mean, the county I grew up in, Hardin County, New Jersey, was rated in the top 10 richest counties in America for years. I mean, you can't live there without basically making a lot of money. You can't. It's a suburb outside New York City by about 40, 42 minutes, depending on where you go from. So a lot of people that don't want to live in New York City live there. They make a lot of money, New Jersey, New York, etc. Transplants who commute into the city. My dad, one of his first law firms was a law firm at stores now called Mudrose, which is a financial bond firm. He worked there for about 7 years. So I learned a lot of hard work ethics from my dad watching him. I'm very grateful for that. But I mean, I was very rigid in all my approaches to life. It was either this is the way and you're an idiot, and I was very judgmental on things I didn't agree with. Now I can see almost everything, any angle, why anyone does anything, whether it's an atrocious crime or not. But even back then when we were talking about the benefits of arranged marriages, I would say, oh, that's so stupid, you're a fucking moron, fuck you, blah, 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 blah. And that was very rigid in its own ways. So something else that you're noticing between 6 to 18 months is your beliefs that you hold in certain situations are changing day by day. You're not seeing noticeable changes on a day-to-day basis. I use that as an analogy / metaphor, but you are seeing changes in your thinking. And you're facing large challenges in your life. Physical, emotional, spiritual, religious, intelligence. You're maybe getting promoted at work because you're trying harder than other people. You're pushing yourself more in the gym. Ooh, excuse me. Just ate lunch. Ooh. I had 6 eggs. That almost came out the other way. So, where was I? You're pushing yourself in the gym, etc., like that. You're trying new things. Maybe you're trying new hobbies. Maybe you're working more hours. Maybe you're reading more. But when I was 27 years old, I read my first book. It was my first year in Cairo school, and I read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Since that time, I've read probably about 150 plus books. I don't read as much nowadays because of how much other goals I have, but I try to read every single day. I can read a little bit more when I have time, but I try to read at least 10 to 15, 20 pages every single day. I like the habit of reading. I like learning new things, and I try to broaden my range of things I read. I don't really read any fiction whatsoever, even though there's tremendous fiction books out there. Excuse me, but I just don't. I like staying in the nonfiction world. A lot of economics, all the biographies, etc., like that. Learning about anything. I read a book a couple months ago on how to structure intelligent sentences from MIT. I had no idea what I read. So there's things out there I like to push myself for and try new things. That's something that you really come around. If you are feeling emotional disturbance in that 6 to 18 month period when you're doing things correctly, you're more than likely not doing compulsive behaviors. You're getting better at wearing the discomfort, not rushing to a compulsion, not rushing to an avoidance. You can still do compulsions and avoidance behaviors in that period. I was still doing compulsions at 2.5 years, very rarely, but I would catch myself a lot quicker. But sometimes when I would fall back into them, it would spike my symptoms up for a while. When I fell back after 238 days of no adult websites, in January 19th of 2022, so almost 2.5 years ago, it spiked my symptoms up for 3 to 6 months, my physical symptoms. So things like this are going to happen. It's no one's fault but my own. I don't blame anything. I just go, what could I have done better? Yes, I have more of an addictive personality. I made a mistake, but it is your mistake, your responsibility. How can you get better? And I'm not saying there's not a disease process when it comes to heroin, crack, and meth addiction and alcoholism. I'm not saying that. I think there's a genetic component for sure. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we have to keep trying over and over and over again, whether we fail. I failed for 2 years straight to stop watching adult websites. 30 days, 45 days, relapse, 1 week, relapse. I relapsed only a week ago. Let me watch for 5 days. Then I relapsed for 238 days, and I got super depressed for about 3 days. I mean, I was crying every single day. You're an idiot. You're a moron. Being very, very rigid on myself. All that stuff has changed. I could do anything, any act, anything right now. I don't want to do those things. But I could see him a human. I could see him a fallible human, which leads me into the last thing I want to talk about, which is that people think when you do these particular things, what they believe is it's going to be an easier possibility to do those things. Because I have unconditional self-acceptance and I struggle with all sorts of female problems in the past and cheating issues I talk about in my body dysmorphia and conditional self-acceptance, people are like, oh, well, if I accept myself that I could cheat, I'm more likely to cheat. No, acceptance doesn't mean agreement. But I do see if I did cheat on Erica, if I cheated on something, if I took a shortcut somewhere in my life, not just on the road, physical shortcut, financial shortcut, I can accept myself because being aware of your mistakes and then saying, look, the behavior was really bad. How do you recorrect that? Instead of you're an idiot, you're a moron. How do you change that so it never happens again because you're a piece of shit? So that doesn't happen. And 18 months in, when you're doing things properly, you would be so surprised at how much your life can get back to where it was, / you're a completely different person. I'm reading a book right now called Good to Great by Jim Collins. Many of you have probably heard about it. It's a great book on 11 companies that they studied for 5 years and which were good to great. His wife actually won the World Triathlon, which is the big one that's in Hawaii in the lava fields, which is crazy. It's a 2.6 mile swim in the ocean, 112 mile bike ride, and a 26.2 mile run in mile wise. And you can imagine how big that is when it comes to kilometers. So it's absolutely insane. Look that up. Look at the World Championship Triathlon in Hawaii. It's completely insane what these people do. And so he's a very dedicated individual, and he was talking about these particular aspects when someone goes through things. And Milo's barking downstairs. When people go through things, they really have 3 choices in life, what they saw. They could sit in misery and pity, and it changes them forever for the worst. They get back to normal and they can function again, or they use that thing to inspire themselves and change things that they can. And that's where I put myself. I would say I'm a harder working and more intelligent, more thoughtful. I have better outlooks on all discomfort in my life, all hardships in my life. I don't view, of course, I'm sad about my father dying of cancer, but I look at the benefits of having a father. I don't look at any misery whatsoever about OCD. I'm very grateful I had OCD. I'm grateful I went through a time that I live right now where we have OCD, where we can learn from those things. So I'm very grateful for everything I went to, and I think that is the most important thing I learned from 6 months to 18 months. So thank you for watching. I know I spoke really fast in this video, but it is really important to talk about this topic, and I'm very passionate about it. I'm going to do this to the day I die because I love working in mental health in this in arena and OCD and anxiety, because there's so much misinformation out there all the time, and by well-intentioned individuals. It's no one's fault. People don't. They're not waking up in the morning and saying, "Oh my God, how do I fuck Nick's life over?" That's not what they're doing for the most part. I'm sure some people do that because we have interesting people in this world, but for the most part, again, Phil at OCDrecovery.com. Let me know what you think. Thank you so much for the support, and we hope to hear from you soon. Have a good one, everyone.